A very good morning. Today is August 4, 2020. In this video, we'll be having a discussion of the Hindu editorial page analysis. The major articles focus upon Article 370 of the Kashmir and the myth making. And the next article is on profiting during the pandemic. And the last article also focuses upon the Jammu and Kashmir statehood and the removal of Article 370. And final article is on toxic brew on the increase of liquor tragedies. This is the cartoon of the day. As you can see that VIPs are getting more privilege rather than more treatment, and common man are not getting good treatment for the coronavirus. Before I begin, I welcome you all to Wi-Fi se Study Karo. I am Prashant. The first article is on Article 370 and Kashmir myth making. The August 5th decision had led to the state wherein the very basis of a potential step of conflict resolution has been undone. So while long-standing ideological commitment to BJP to undo Article 370 of our Indian Constitution is why Jammu and Kashmir was stripped of its special status as well as statehood making, it is a simmering cauldron of the discontent. Our collective myth making of about Kashmir is the deepest reason for what the former state had become today. So Kashmir has been a favorite site of our national myth making, myths that have over the years assumed larger than the life manifestation in our collective psyche. So Kashmir has most things that popular myths are made of: mesmerizing beauty, cross-border terror, deep states and the agents, war and heroism. So clearly, myths about the Kashmir are not created by the right wing alone, but by the successive Indian government over several decades, enthusiastically embellishing by the vibrant popular culture. So demonizing Kashmir, the most prominent among them is regarding the ills of Article 370 and 35A of the Indian Constitution. Home Minister Amit Shah's statement last year on the floor of Parliament that Article 370 was the root cause for the terrorism in Jammu and Kashmir is widely accepted sentiment, notwithstanding the fact that there is a little material basis to it. Neither was Article 370 responsible for terrorism in the valley, nor has its removal ensured a reduction of terrorism. If anything, Article 370 continues to remain very much apart from the solution of the Kashmir conundrum. The constitutional provision is also held responsible for running J&K, stalling its development and preventing proper health care and blocking industries. Once again, these arguments lack of merit and evidence. J&K, as a matter of fact, has been doing much better than most of the Indian states. As one of the reasons for this was the land reforms carried out by the state in the early 1950s, which was possibly precisely because of the presence of Article 370. For sure, the educational and health sector in J&K should be further improved, as should be in the rest of the country. But the reason for the underperformance of education and health sector in Kashmir is not Article 370. So while the private enterprises could set up the industries in the former state and leased lands, as they have not over the years, acquisition of the land by the public sector enterprises from outside the state was never a problem. Private investors do not set up a shop in the Kashmir due to militancy, which is the product of existing conflict, not because of Article 370 or 35A. In case Article 370 or 35A, which did not start in Kashmir conflict, if anything, they played a role in continuing it. So finding the truth, the off-cited counter-argument is that if J&K is doing better than the other states, it is because of the massive amounts of funds provided by New Delhi. Now this is the second myth, that how subsidized by New Delhi and J&K did our taxpayers' money actually go into the sustaining J&K's relatively better position among the Indian states. Well, if it did, it would weaken the argument that Kashmir needed to be developed. So the argument is not that Kashmir did not receive funding from New Delhi, it did, but a massive fund, as it is often made out to be. So economist and a former state finance minister of Jammu and Kashmir, Hashib, makes a distinction between the funds that went to J&K government and those that were into economic development of the state. So J&K government's revenue deficit had traditionally been taken care of by the New Delhi. So J&K, for historically reasons, has had bloated bureaucracy in the comparison of other states, and their salaries and pensions have been financed by the central government. So, but due to the precious little of the state's economy or general population, Then there is a routine transfer of funds from center to J&K's government. just as the transfers took place from New Delhi to other states. So finally, Jammu and Kashmir also received a funds thanks to its status as a special category state, which again is a case in several other Indian states. But put differently, J&K's better performance in comparison to most of the other Indian states is at least partly because of Article 370, and its well-being is not necessarily a result of New Delhi's economic package. Let us talk the third myth about the Kashmir. One of it's repeated by the politicians and scholars alike, like development can defeat the militancy and insurgency. Notwithstanding the fact that the caste-strapped country such as ours has inherent limitations on how much development assistance it can provide to Jammu and Kashmir over the other states, the reality may be well that the development may not lead to pacification of the conflict in Kashmir. So the Kashmir conflict is a function of complex historical grievances, political ethics, ethnic demands, increasing religious radicalization, Pakistan's unrelenting interference in the Kashmir Valley. So it would be simplistic to imagine that such a multi-layered and a complex conflict can be resolved by the stroke of pen, effecting a constitutional change or providing an economic package. So the deep impact is that this overwhelming might-taking of the Kashmir has had far unfortunate implications, and had to understand that we treat Kashmir as Kashmiris. The rare political unity is in the rest of our country supporting the August 5th decision, especially the Article 370, was a function of this might-taking. The popular cultural articulations about Kashmir and Kashmiris in the media, films, music and other cultural representations have further strengthened these myths, so that the Kashmir needs to be reunited with the rest of the India has been powerfully claimed made by such representations and political articulations. No matter, Kashmir was easily India's most securitized state, with various central institutions and agencies undermining not only with what was left on Article 370 prior to August last year, but also impeding the elected government's power in the former state. Yet another popular perception about the Kashmiris as the troublemakers and the sympathizers of the terror has led to noticeable increase in the mistreatment of Kashmiri Muslims in the rest of the country. How little empathy exists in the country towards the plight of Kashmiris, including the mainstream politicians, is a direct outcome of such might-making. The hard reality is that this might-making about Kashmir has today led to a situation wherein we have undone the very basis of potential process of the conflict resolution in Kashmir. If indeed Article 370 was a stumbling block in bringing Kashmir closer to the rest of the India, a source of extremism and separatists in the Kashmir Valley, and an avenue for the Pakistan to gain their foothold in the valley, has removal of the special status brought Kashmir close to India. So in the last 1 year, the reorganization of the erstwhile state was defended on the ground that it would lead to a greater integration of J&K with the rest of the country. In a democracy, the concept of integration has also evaluated from multi-facet system and the lens which includes the emotional aspect as well. And in that respect, sadly, the effect of the ground of a catalysm change in August 5th, 2019 has yielded the opposite effect. Jammu and Kashmir seems to be stuck in morass. So this is regarding the August 5th. Incidentally, this change was introduced in August 5th, which also happened to be the birth date of arguably the foremost scholar and activist of Jammu and Kashmir, which he was passed away in 2014. Again, there are two core ideas that he consistently advocated, where the peace would not ensure in J&K without guaranteeing respecting of democratic rights for the people. So to ensure that, the most important tool would be the rigorous pursuit of federalism within the state. So both of these are particularly salient in the present context. So in his best-selling book Kashmir Towards Insurgency, published in 1990s, the author writes this way: as a right to democracy, one-party rule had been imposed on the state, though through manipulation of elections, opposition parties have been prevented from growing, and elementary civil liberties and human rights have been refused to the people. So this refusal to integrate Kashmir within the framework of Indian democracy had proved to be single greatest block of the process of the Kashmir emotional and political integration with the rest of the India. He repeatedly argued that the feeling of the hopelessness and threat to identity exacerbated by the political vacuum create a breeding ground for the militancy. So there is an asymmetry and also federalism. The last year should worry the entire country as a constitutional change was an attack of Indian federalism. The idea that the present Article 370 weakened the Indian Union is erroneous and is contrary to the basic understanding of the democracy and lessons learned from the experiments of Indian federalism. So there is plenty of evidence to suggest that such an asymmetry has strengthened the Indian Union and also led to a better policy implementation and participation in the political process. In this respect, the multi-regional and ethnic Jammu and Kashmir quest for autonomy should be seen through a broader lens of multi-layered appetite for a political, economic and social empowerment of all the three regions. So Jammu and Kashmir remains as a microcosm of India's diversity. So J&K's immense geographical, ethnic and religious diversity should be the source of strength rather than seen or viewed as a liability. So this is regarding the Article 370. The next article is regarding profiteering during the pandemic. So overcharging the public should be made punishable offence under the Disaster Management Act. Soon after the government imposed the nationwide lockdown to contain the spread of COVID-19, prices of essential items shot up in several places across the country. The sudden demand for the masks also saw even an ordinary mask being sold at the rate of 150 rupees a piece, though it turned cheaper weeks later when there was mass production. Slowly, as the cases grew up, reports were published of the private hospitals overcharging patients even after the state's government capped COVID-19 treatment charges. In some of the private hospitals, patients were asked to pay lakhs even before they being allotted the beds. So even doctors working in the hospitals reported that they thought that their patients were being fleeced. Compassion was nowhere to be seen, although all that mattered was money making. For instance, after a patient's family lodged a complaint within the West Bengal Clinical Establishment Regulatory Commission that the patient had been overcharged, the commission directed the private hospital where she had been admitted to refund around 1.4 lakh of 1.84 lakh charged for the personal protection equipment. So the hospital was charging around 7,000 rupees a day for the cost of the PPE as used by the doctors against the cap of rupees 1,000 fixed by the West Bengal government. So not all the patients who have been overcharged have been able to file the complaint and receive the refunds. However, the cost of medicines to shoot up in the Srinagar Remdesivir was being sold for around 36,000 against normal rate of 6,000 rupees. So the poor could not afford the medicine and looked to the government agencies for the help. In some places, those who could afford purchased more than the required quantity, leading to a shortage. In Mumbai, 7 persons were arrested for selling the vial of injection of Remdesivir to 30,000. The actual price fixed by the government is around 5,400. So ambulance owners to choose to make up a good money in these pandemic times. For transporting patients up to a distance of 10 to 15 kilometers, they charged as much as 30,000 in Mumbai. For going to the hospital just 7 kilometers away, a patient had to spend around 8,000 in Pune. In Kolkata also they spent 8,000 for 5 kilometers, while in Hyderabad transportation charges range between 5,000 to 10,000 rupees for the distance of 10 kilometers. So during this lockdown, the poor migrants who wanted to go home had to spend large amounts to hire vehicles. Buses operated by the private agencies charged exorbitant fares. So most migrants could not afford these rates and have to trudge hundreds of kilometers on foot. So many met with the accident and lost their lives in this process. So this is regarding the pandemic, how most of the people are making the profit out of it. The next article is also on the removal of J&K's statehood. At least 24 politicians of J&K remain in detention. Some of the unnotified a year was deprived of the statehood and special constitutional status on August 5th 2019. Last week, the People's Democratic Party, that is President PDP President, former Chief Minister Mehbooba Mufti detention was formally extended by another 3 months under the J&K Public Safety Act, but several other remains restrained within their homes in the Kashmir, which is now the Union Territory under the rule of Delhi. Last week again, the administration flat out denied after the Supreme Court, and the former Union Minister and Congress leader Saifuddin was under the detention. Although he has been restrained from moving and speaking freely, he was allowed to visit his erring sister but denied a meeting with his daughter by the police on Friday. So neither on the J&K government nor the center have released a list of number of leaders who were detained last year. So at least 16 National Conference and the 8 PDP leaders and also under the house arrest according to these parties. So former IAS officer and also chief of the J&K Public People's Movement Shah Faisal and some of the persons were also under the detention. The People Conference chief was released after 360 days of detention last week. So most of the 2019 move by the BJP government and at the center went beyond the stringent Hindutva policy against the special status of J&K by reorganizing it into 2 union territories. The wisdom of these decisions remain as an open question, though they refurbish the BJP's claims of a muscular nationalism. So the dubious legislative route that the center took and the communication restrictions on the population that followed the cast a shadow into India's standing on its constitutional democracy. So the judiciary, the J&K High Court and Supreme Court had not shown any The judiciary and also court did not show any authority to settle the constitutional and legal questions that raised before it in the fact that appeared to privilege the executive positions in the last 1 year. So this is regarding how the things are going on in Jammu and Kashmir after the implementation of 370 article. But the judiciary and also Supreme Court have not given any symptom of positive note, and also most of them are detained in the house. The next article, the final article, is regarding the increase in the liquor tragedies, that is the hooch selling, and most of the people have been killed due to these things. Liquor tragedies can be prevented if the states close up a gap to hooch, ensure accountability. So once again, the scourge of illicit liquor had stricken, this time in Punjab, killing more than 100 people and leaving many crippled. The victims in Amritsar, Tarn and some of the districts were sold a hooch that apparently had a large amount of denatured alcohol. The state government, which is responsible for both excise and law and order, has sanctioned a financial relief for the affected families and suspended some policemen officials in charge of the excise enforcement. So wiser after the fact that the police claimed that there was an inter-district racket of operations and made several arrests. On the other hand, the kith and kin of those who had died says the illicit brew was peddled virtually in the open by small town vendors, some of whom have been now arrested. So there are also echoes in the tragedy of the last year, 2 major incidents involving Uttar Pradesh, Uttarakhand and Assam, both witnessing large-scale loss of their life. So moreover, there has been a fatal outcome during the COVID-19 pandemic, as people desperate for the alcohol consumed hand sanitizers and substitute. Most recently in Andhra Pradesh, almost every year India's moonshine market inflicts tremendous destruction in the form of blindness, tissue damage and deaths, as the commercial alcohol becomes expensive for less affluent and corrupt bureaucracies allow a void to be filled by the illicit liquor vendors who almost invariably use toxic methanol instead of ethanol. Policies that fail to contain the illicit alcohol produce long-term health impacts, as people tend to consume brews that have higher concentrations of alcohol or toxic substances such as methanol. From a medical viewpoint, the availability of illicit spirits that contain a lower alcohol levels, combined with a sustained public health campaign to wean people away from drinking the habit and also warn them about the effect of containments, are key interventions. So as the World Health Organization points out, the government should regulate the quality of legal alcoholic drinks while actively tracing and tracking illicit alcohol. This can be achieved only through cooperation of community, particularly from the women's group. So tragically, several states give a low priority to revamping the administration and policing, paving the way for the episode of death and misery. So the capability of the health system in every district needs to be raised to reduce the damage from the methanol through immediate and simple detoxification therapies. That's the end of article discussion. If you are new to my channel, I request you all to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you will not miss further updates. Thank you for your time. Have a great day.